Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. With us today is Richard Eldridge. He's the co-founder of Lendo, a microfinancing group. Lendo is an online platform which uses social media to help entrepreneurs get access to financial services. Members can tap into the reputation they built on different social networks to apply for loans. It's inspired by banking systems where credit is based on trust. Lendo has a growing member base in 5 countries with over 10,000 members. Eldridge joins us today to talk about his company and why he thinks it's going to be well received here in the Philippines. Thanks for coming to speak with us today, Richard. Richard is also a friend, so I will say this up front. Richard, tell us about Lendo. What's the idea behind it?
Sure, I've had the pleasure of living in the Philippines since 2001, and I was with the call center industry and the BPO industry for the majority of that time. And I was amazed how we were taking some of the top graduates from the top schools. They were working so hard in our company, and they were being trusted with thousands of dollars on behalf of our clients. But quite often at the end of a payroll run, they would come to me and say, Richard, I need to borrow some money. We need some money for my education, my family's education. I have a problem at home. And I wondered, why are you having to ask me? If I coming back from the UK, if I was in their situation, I would go to the bank.
Yes.
And they would give me a credit line, or I had a credit card. So we wondered why, and we did some research.
Yes.
And through the course of that research, it became very interesting. Number one, we found that not just the call center workers, but there was a huge middle class developing in the Philippines initially and then across the world. Number two, we found they had very little financial education.
Yes.
Over 80% had never received any financial education. Number three, there was no credit rating agency in the Philippines.
Yes, there isn't.
And even countries where there is, such as Colombia, a lot of these people are not part of that rating, or their ratings are not accurate because there's no data on them.
Yes.
They have a prepaid cell phone, they live at home with their parents,
Yes.
they've never had any credit, so they can't get a score.
Yeah.
And finally, all these people used social media, and they were all on mobile. So we dug further and we said, well, there's got to be an opportunity to take some of the best practices in microfinance, which had been working successfully in the country for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
We're helping people at the bottom of the pyramid, but put it online, put it in a format and make it easier for these types of people to access credit and financial services. So we came up with the idea of Lendo.
And when did you start Lendo?
So Lendo's idea was founded in 2010.
Okay.
And we did about a year's worth of research, and then we launched the Philippines in 2011.
And what's the reception been like?
It's been great. We're growing over 10% month on month, and we have been since we started. I think the general idea has been, wow, it's too good to be true. What's going on?
Yes, because if you talk about it, I guess even in terms of interest rates, the interest rates in banks are actually very prohibitive, and then so they go to what people call 5-6 places. But so tell me, how do I go about getting a loan from Lendo?
Sure. So typically you join. It's a very simple process. We put it all online.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you can Facebook Connect to join, or you can just fill in 5 pieces of information. Typically, you then connect your social networks, so we can build up our Lendo score, which is akin to a credit score, and it's a score between 0 and 1,000.
Okay.
And then, depending on the type of loan, you may need to have other things that you need to do. So for the starter loan or the small credit loan, which is like, let us get to know you a bit more, prove your credit worthiness before you get bigger loans.
Yes.
You can really apply immediately. If you apply for a bigger loan, you have to create a trusted community.
Yes.
A bit like the communities in microfinance they build, where they have education together, they have to understand that the other person's taking the loan. We do the same but in an online environment. So from the Lendo platform, you can invite using email, through Facebook, through Gmail, your friends, and they have to agree to be part of your trusted network. And they know that by joining your trusted network, number one, they know what's going on in the platform with yourself.
Yes.
And number two, their score will be affected by your behavior. So potentially, if you're a good repayer, they've got a higher chance of getting credit in the future if they need it. And number three, equally important, that their ability to get credit will be affected by your behavior as well.
Interesting. And again, if I want to apply for a loan, I sign up for it, I sign up my social networks, and then how do you decide whether to give the loan or not?
Sure. So we kind of use 4 basic criteria in our underwriting process. The first is identity verification,
Yes.
which is similar to the banks and everyone
Yes.
else does. I think the benefit we have is by using social media, we can perform some of that identity verification very quickly. So we don't have to go and visit the person's house, go to
Yes.
their employer or their school. We can do some of this online using our complex algorithms. The second part is the character of the person, and by that's our Lendo score, and it's,
So what do you
and
need
it's
to
generated
do
by how many people you know, how you interact with them, and again that's built by a data scientist in New York.
Interesting.
And the third is really a capacity to pay issue.
Yes.
And that's a pre-calculated value based on who you are, how much you earn, what your expenses are, etc. And finally, the purpose of the loan. We give life-improving loans away. So we do have a social impact investor or media network, and we want to work with them at improving, economically empowering the lives of the middle class. We don't want to be just giving money away for wrong purposes. So we are very focused on that.
And how long does this process take?
If all the information is accurate and available, we can get loans out within the next business day.
Within 24 hours?
Within 24 hours. If we have to follow up for further clarification or questions, or things get questionable in the system, we'll then get back to the member and ask them to provide more information.
Do you find, what about fake accounts? Social media, we have proliferation of fake accounts or communities with people who are anonymous.
Sure. Of course, and that's one of the first questions we always get asked. It's easy to fake it. Well,
Yes.
what we found is that it's easy to fake one part of your social presence. It's very hard to build up a whole life behind the social media. Now you're connecting with your family, your friends from school, your friends from college, your workmates now,
Yes.
People who you live near. It's kind of, when you look at that whole topology of how the network's developed, it's very hard to go back and then fake and make that. So we've come across some instances of that,
Yes.
but our systems with our fraud detection have picked that up very easily.
Interesting. And how are you doing so far?
So we're very, very happy. As I said, we're growing quickly. We're where we need to be. We started the first year of operation in the Philippines only. I'm very proud to say it was conceptualized in the Philippines. It was piloted in the Philippines, and it's now the biggest country that's moving forward. And the majority of our team, not only the local operations team, but the development team, are based here. We then decided we wanted to prove the model outside the Philippines, and we decided even outside Asia. So we moved to Colombia, and we've since gone there. We've been operating there a year now, and we've actually grown tremendously quickly there. And even more recently, as 2 weeks ago, we've now launched in Mexico, and we're actually just starting to drive that market as well.
How do you make money?
So we do charge interest on the loans. It's
Okay.
important that we're a sustainable business. We do have a double bottom line of life improvement for
Yes.
the society, but we are a for-profit.
Okay. And then in the Philippines, I guess take me through. If I were 20 something, I'm in my first job and I find myself short of cash, and I'm online and I see Lendo. So take me through what happens.
Sure. So typically, and we find it very interesting. There's very different reasons people would want a loan. Some people want and think life improvement is to have a business on the side. It could be an online store these days. It could be as simple as a sari store for their parents, but they don't have available cash.
Yes.
A lot of the time they're asked to support their brother and sister through school, and they don't have the available cash. They have a good income, they have a solid record, they just
Yes.
don't have the available cash at the time when the purchase is required.
Yes.
Even for their own education, quite often we find that people want to take a course. Now we know that taking a course in the future will lead to higher income for them,
Yes.
but they just don't have that opportunity. So quite often they're thinking about one of these types of topics. They then try and figure out, well, how can I afford to get into this? And then they would kind of come to our site, they would learn about it. We offer free financial education on our site, and they can get tips and tricks all the time, every day, that get sent to them. And we found that that's very responsive, not only to the member, but by posting it on the Facebook in a very easy, consumable way. They tend to like short articles, they like pictures, they like images, They like things that are relevant to them in the Philippines. A lot of financial education content talks about American examples, 401k.
Yes.
Here they want to know, well, how can I save up to do this? How can I save a little bit of money on my air conditioning bill because it might be so big? And that's what we try and make it more applicable.
Interesting. Okay, so if I apply, I'll go back to that. I apply. You ask me for the 5 things that you, and then within 24 hours, I hear from you.
Yeah. So typically, you fill in the application form. At every stage along the process, we email and text you to let you know the update of the loan application.
Okay.
As soon as it's been approved. Depending on the payment method that we agree to, it could be over the counter, and we've partnered with the 3 big banks here, which is BDO, BPI, and Metro Bank. We'll either agree you pay over the counter, or we can automatically debit it from your payroll account. And that appears to be one of the preferred options for the kind of youth of today. They don't want to go to the bank like a lot of people do. And I think one of the things when some of my American colleagues came here for the first time, they couldn't even believe there were chairs in banks.
Yes.
And they were full.
Yes.
In America, there were no chairs in no banks, and
Yeah.
no one ever goes to a branch anymore.
Yes.
And I'm starting to see that with the younger population here.
They prefer to do it online.
Either online or automatic.
Automatic.
I agree that you can deduct the same amount out of my account for 6 installments or 12 installments. Just go and do it.
Yes.
I trust you, and I don't want to be interfered anymore. So the big change.
Fascinating. And when you go forward, so you said you're growing 10% year on year.
A month on
Month
month.
on month.
Month on month.
10% month on month. So where do you see this moving?
Sure. So at the moment we have about 125,000 members in the Philippines. We see ourselves growing further in the Philippines. We haven't really scratched the surface. We've been obviously training the algorithms, getting better at what we do. We're looking at what other types of loan products and services we can offer. We're looking at who else can we help out, and what other things should we do. So we're looking at microinsurance to give to people at the moment. How can we get involved with investment and savings for these people?
Yes.
We don't want to be a financial institution. Ultimately, we are technologists,
Yes.
and we're trying to solve a problem that exists in emerging markets, in the financial services space where they're not being catered for. So they're not unbanked like
Yes.
the bottom of the pyramid,
Yes.
but we would say they're underbanked. So we see we're applying technology to solve that underbanked problem.
And that's also interesting because sometimes those forms in banks can be intimidating if you're not used to banks, but somehow online for this generation is easier. That's my perception, at least.
Yeah, we're actually A/B testing the forms at the moment to
Yes.
see what they find easier and
Yes.
how it works. And we're actually deploying a mobile app very, very shortly that will make that process even easier. So
What about interest rates? So normal bank interest rates, if you were a large company sometimes charges 12% for a loan. How much are you getting back in interest
sure.
rates?
So our rates charge between 0.99% add-on a month to 2.99% add-on a month. So it does vary.
Yes.
If you become a good borrower with us, the rates go down.
Okay.
And we expect that to be able to come down further over time. But at the moment, I think the feedback we get from members is typically, number one, I can't get credit. The banks don't want to deal with me, I can't get a credit card, but I need cash quickly. And they say, well, what options do I have? And
Yes.
typically it's the 5-6 schemes.
Yes.
It's the informal lenders who charge a lot more, and they even take your payroll card.
Yes.
So they will take your ATM card from your payroll and give you another cash card. And they take the first amount and they give you an allowance. And to me, that's just wrong.
Yes.
We trust people. The premise of this is that just because I don't know you, I don't trust you. If I can know some of you because of social media, I can trust you and I can extend credit. And that's what we're all about.
What's your repayment rate so far?
It's very good. We're already moving towards the microfinance default rates, which are very, very low. We're under now the credit card default rates, and we're looking to get even lower.
What's the danger ahead for something like this?
Obviously, there's lots of danger. The danger being from massive fraud. So we've employed some kind of advanced fraud detection
Yes.
technologies already. That the people have access to all this in the future. But even with the coming of the credit, the CIC hopefully in the future, we see that as additive rather than competitive in nature. we see ourselves working with a lot more third parties and actually providing them a technology solution so it can be their funds, it can be their capital that goes to fund that. We're not bankers, we are technologists.
Yes.
We're doing the bankers to prove the model out, but then we want to roll it over to other people.
Interesting. And my last one is coming in from the Philippines. What are the advantages of starting it here? I mean, did you choose the Philippines because you were living here, or was it really a choice because of the way the society is connected? I mean, we're really not that connected if you think about it. We're 33% on internet penetration rate.
Sure. So, interesting story that this was founded between myself and Jeff Stewart in New York. So Jeff Stewart had been my client in the outsourcing company for a long time. He's a renowned tech entrepreneur in New York and had, over a period of time, set up and grown a number of businesses. And I was sharing the story with him.
Yeah.
And we just said, let's do research and let's see if we can kind of come forward and make something of this. So we looked at where the most logical place would be. We did study other countries.
Yes.
And it came down to kind of a number of criteria we look at, not just for the first country, but for expansion as well. And
Yes.
that's how big's the middle class? Do they have problems accessing financial services? Do they have access to social media, and are they active on social media?
Yes.
And typically there are more detailed questions, but those are the top 3 types of things, as well as the legal restrictions that exist to operate in those countries.
Yes.
And time again, the Philippines was one of the top ones in Asia. I was based here, so it made a logical kind of starting point here. How it's going, in terms of we are one of the few companies that have had investment directly from venture capitalists in the Valley.
Correct.
In here, and I'm now working quite actively with some of the kind of the incubator centers here to see how we can showcase Lendo as something, because I know there's lots more great other tech companies out there. They're just not getting the exposure at the moment, but there's so many ideas, and we've just got to drive it forward.
That's fantastic. Look, before we wrap, there's a question coming in from Twitter from @Dons23. How do you differentiate? How can you tell the difference between an opportunist and a swindler?
Sure. So I go back. So the verification check is the first check. Is that person who they say they are?
Yes.
And that's we have access to a lot of that. We also do some manual checks at the moment, which we're starting to automate. The algorithm, maybe go back to that, is about character. So before we went into urbanization 100 years ago, how did they extend credit? Well, they went around their local village and they said, do you know this person?
Yes.
Do you trust him?
Yes.
And they kind of, and they got a basis on that. JP Morgan, one of his key quotes of all times was, what's the most important thing in extending credit? It's character.
Yeah.
So we do pay a lot of emphasis for character, and we hired our CTO, who's a PhD in neuroscience from Columbia, and he's built these massive data sets that are picking out these people. We call them non-starters, people who will never pay their first repayment, hence the swindlers. And we've almost eliminated them out of our systems already.
And you're doing this with algorithms.
Correct.
Interesting. So in some ways, the technology has actually made it easier and faster. Have you ever been wrong?
Yeah, we have made mistakes. I think at the early stages, you actually have to train your algorithm. And that was an interesting concept we had, wherein the algorithm would say yes and no. Yes, give a loan. No, don't give a loan. So we would have to give some of those no, don't give a loan. We'd have to give them out to prove that the algorithm was right.
Works.
So that's what happened over the first year and a half. With now with our algorithm, it's very, very predictive. It's outperforming humans doing the same credit check that would be done in a bank, and as a result, we're able to roll this out a lot quicker now.
Are other companies doing anything like this around the world?
So there are companies that are using social media as an additive to the underwriting process. There's companies in America and Europe that are doing that. There are companies here that are trying to finance the unserved markets.
Yes.
As of now, there's not really a company that's working in social, finance, and developing markets. So it's kind of the spectrum of that. There's really no one right now.
Yes.
People doing 2 of them? Yes, there's lots of them.
So your last thoughts on this one, Richard, when you're looking at the possibility, what technology is enabling you to do now? I mean, how would you summarize it, and what do you see in the future ahead?
So I see, number one, it's great technology can be used for life-improving purposes. It's amazing, and we're very focused on that. Everything we do from our vision and our mission is all about life improvement. So we need to take that step forward. How can further technology in the future be more life improving? Obviously internally, looking at how we can grow quicker, how we can make it quicker, the process, by using more data sources, by training our algorithms further, is part of the solution, but also being able to expand it out further and see what else comes along that road. A lot of people said, Facebook may not be around in a few years. It's not the only thing we do. We connect with LinkedIn, we connect with Facebook, Google, Yahoo. There's going to be other ones that come up along the way, and we're very interested to see how that, alongside mobile usage and more mobile usage on Android, we see as the big push in the next 2 to 3 years, how that will change and evolve the technology landscape here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming and speaking with us. We've been speaking with Richard Eldridge. He's the co-founder of Lendo, a microfinancing group, on new approaches to microfinance in the age of social media. Watch it. Again, I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for watching.